Welcome to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.
Alrighty. Welcome to the fourth episode of Slackin' Off. I'm actually really excited for today's episode. Again, you're going to find really quickly that here on Slackin' Off, we do everything but slack off. Today, I'm excited for my guest. I've watched from a distance this individual for a while. We've helped out from an accounting perspective just a little bit briefly, but to be honest with you, this individual is moving mountains and he's moving quick. So without further ado, welcome to today's episode, Kota.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me on, dude. I'm excited. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, I'm sure.
I'm equally as excited. I'm going to start off, if you don't mind me. This has kind of been on my mind for the past week or so. You and I got a little bit of time to talk and catch up at Door to Door Con, and you made a comment that for me it resonates just because I feel like when you get going and you get going so quick and you're talking to so many people, sometimes the conversations can be pretty dry. But you made a comment while we were talking about the real ones, having conversations with the real ones, and having deeper conversations more than just like surface level business jargon and bullshit. So I want to dive into that, and then obviously we'll dive into like what you're doing and how quickly you guys are growing and what things you guys are doing to grow so quickly. But I wanted to dive into that really quick. Tell me a little bit about why that meant so much to you, because I feel like you and I have great conversations, but I'm curious to see what that meant to you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there are saying what they think is supposed to be said, and it's all coming from a place of like, I want people to perceive me in this way, whether it's intentional or unintentional. That's what it is. Most people want to be perceived a certain way. I do, you do. Everybody has like sort of an identity or picture
Sure.
in their head of like, I want people to view me this way. It's what social media is. And there are a lot of people out there that will post pretty things or say the right things. And then you follow up, they're like, I'm going to help you out with this. Or like, oh, I love that. It's such a great idea. And then when it's not in a group setting or when it's not at an event, you hit them up and they don't respond, or they're like, oh, we don't have time for that. And it's like, oh, so you're just full of shit. Cool. There's like that part. And then there's also like the super generic, like, I'm going to do and say anything to kind of people please and play it safe. And people just agree with each other blindly. And instead of like, hey, I think that's a dumb idea, or like, hey, I don't understand that. That's a big one too, is like, not very many people will just voice that they don't know what they're doing. And I think we have this culture in the home services space of people that are like flexing like they know what they're doing and talking about things. And we've got coaches that are coaching people. And a lot of it is fake, and there's nothing wrong with not knowing and like telling people I don't know and figuring this out as I go. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you get these people that don't know what they're doing at all, and they're gonna act like they know everything. They're gonna act like they have this $100 million company. And it's like, you don't have shit. Like, just tell people you don't have shit and you're figuring it out, and you're gonna be awesome. No one's gonna like hate you or think less of you.
Yeah.
It's just like the fronting is really, really prevalent in our industry for sure.
We are coming out of the gate swinging. That was good. That was good.
Yeah, man.
I feel that. So to kind of a little bit of backstory, and to be honest with you, I don't really even feel like I know your whole backstory. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved into the direct-to-consumer sales space, specifically door-to-door, and tell us what led you to start what is now quickly growing into a little empire with GR8FL Solar.
Yeah, so I was always doing something with sales. Like, I was 13, I had an eBay Power Seller account. I don't know if eBay still exists, but if it does, you can probably still go on there and type in 435. It does?
It does. The only reason I know that is because someone sold the sand where Tom Brady announced his retirement the other day for like $90,000. That's the only reason I know eBay still exists.
I saw that article. I thought they were trying to sell it. Somebody actually bought it?
Someone, I think the sale price was $90,990. I could be wrong, but I think that's what someone bought it for.
Oh, I hope nobody bought that. That's hilarious, man. That's great. But anyway, so like I was selling shit on eBay. I would buy. This was back in I don't even know when I was 13. I'm 28 now, so 15 years ago. There's that 2008. And so I would basically buy things off of Craigslist and resell it on eBay or vice versa, depending on what the object was and like which one was selling for more.
Sure.
A lot of it was like Game Boy Color games. I sold Pokemon games. I sold Xbox 360s. I would get PS3s. And a lot of it was, I learned early on that a package means something because I would take something that somebody found, I'd search the internet and I'd find like a Pokemon game, let's say. And if anybody remembers the old school Game Boy Color Pokemon games, when you put it into the Game Boy, it says new or it says continue game and that's it. And this one said new, and it didn't say continue game, which means that it had never actually been played. So these guys had sold it as used. It was actually brand new. And so because they had the box and because it had never been used, I was able to sell it as new, and I had like a
Flip
300%
it.
markup on that. Yeah, so I flipped that for a pretty penny. It was like I paid like I don't know, like 20 or 30 bucks, and I sold it for over a couple $100. And then I used that to buy a console, and then I started flipping consoles. So I did that for a while when I was 13. If you look up 435 Lakota on eBay, because my real name is Lakota, you'll probably find that profile. It's like all 5-star reviews. I was a power seller, which I don't remember what it means. I think it just means he sold like over 100 things and got reviews. I don't know. So that was kind of like I was always selling something or always wanting to make money. I was always very like OCD. I was the kid that would save my Halloween candy and organize it in rows by size or by color or by category. You'd open up my closet and you'd see in my sister's closet or their room it'd be super messy and cluttered. And then you'd go into my closet and there's a poster board with my Halloween candy from 4 months ago neatly categorized so that I could either eat it if I really wanted to, but more than likely sell it at school later when the demand was low or when the supply was low because Halloween had been gone for a few months, or use it to trade with my sisters if I wanted something, right? So I always had like a little hustle spirit in me, nothing crazy. And then graduated high school, I graduated from Stone Canyon here in St. George, Utah, went to college for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I stopped going because I was in a network marketing company called Vima. So my first ever kind of
Oh,
like
okay.
adult venture was network marketing, and I was selling healthy energy drinks was kind of like the pitch. And so
Okay.
it's crazy. Like Zane, the CEO of Better Earth, he was in Vima. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of big time people that started in Vima. It was a really weird like just culture that led to some pretty cool things. And I just got so consumed with building the business that I didn't realize that I was in college. This is true. Like I wasn't intentionally not going to school. I was just so busy watching training videos and networking and trying to build a business that I just forgot. And I got a call from somebody at the admissions office, and they basically said like, "Hey, are you sick? What's going on? You're not in your classes? Are you out of town?" I was like, "Oh no, like
You'd
I just
completely
haven't."
forgotten.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, I just haven't gone. They're like, well, you have to either come in and like withdraw from this semester so that it's not on your record, because if you don't come in and withdraw, it's gonna look as if you, I can't remember what they said, but like it's basically like a hard dropout. Like you're gonna be a dropout and it's gonna be on your record. And I remember doing like a half-second pause and saying like, that's fine, I'm never coming back. And then I hung up. And so that was like 2 weeks in. Because I was like, dude, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, man. I had never been
Yeah.
exposed to the opportunity to make big money. And here's this company, and there's people making, 20 or 30,000 a month that were young. And I was like, I don't know how to make money. These guys are making money. I'm all in. So I was all in on that for like 8, 9 months. We left. We started up an entrepreneurial group called Emerging Entrepreneurs at first, led by our mentor for years, Mark Hoverson. He was a 8-figure entrepreneur, online marketing, did a lot of stuff on YouTube early when it first launched. And he'd made millions of dollars online. He used to live in a trailer park, this crazy whole story. He was on welfare and ended up making millions online. So he was this like guy in his 30s that was like a god to us and basically took us under his wing. When I say us, it was probably like 20 or so people to start. By the end of it, we probably had a total of like 700 or so young men that were in this group that was called Limitless. And we'd travel the country. We went and visited Harvard. We went and traveled a couple other awesome historic places, Boston, and he would just teach us things like principles,
Mm.
life principles, business principles, how to market, how to sell, how to create time freedom. And so we learned a lot from Mark for a couple of years when we were doing that. Simultaneously, we're all kind of doing our own things for actual like work and business. Like, you know, some people had jobs, some people had side hustles. And then back in 2015 was when I got introduced to door to door. And so originally I was living in Salt Lake City. I had an apartment downtown with a couple buddies. One of the guys had said he sold for Alder way back in the day. I think it was called Alarm Protection or AP or something like that before
Yeah.
Alder. And he had talked to us about how he made like 80 grand in a year. And we're like, there's no way, like you're lying, blah, blah, blah. So we started talking to door-to-door companies. The first one we talked to actually and almost worked for was Dish One, which is now Caliber. And I remember
Yep.
meeting Mark Cram the man, and I'm in his office and he's whiteboarding out. If you sell this many satellites and the account value is this, you're going to make this per account, you're going to make this much. And he's like on a whiteboard showing me how I'm going to make 50 grand my first summer. I'm like, this is crazy. And so I almost sold
Yeah.
TV. I think we tested it for like a week or something, but then we shopped around because we heard alarms is the way to do it. And you should do that for your first summer. So we went to P1, Protection One back in the day, and North Star. And those were the two main companies we were going to kind of like choose between. They were both going to offer me a $5,000 sign-on bonus, which, you know, I never knocked the door in my life. Like, why are you giving me a sign-on bonus? It's crazy. I'm like, dude, I can just get money for
Yeah.
doing nothing. I just have to agree to sell with you for 4 months, and you're going to give me $5,000 up front. So immediately getting like not
Where do
probably
I
the healthiest.
sign?
Yeah, dude. Like not the healthiest way to start the industry, like the healthiest mindset. Like very I was very much so looking for get rich quick stuff. That was my mindset. I wanted shortcuts. I
Yeah.
wanted to be rich fast. I wanted to be, you know, a billionaire when I was 30 years old. Just these crazy things that when you get older you have perspective, maturity. But when I was younger, dude, I just wanted to hustle and win and succeed. That was it. And so um ended up taking a sign-on bonus from Protection One. And then at the last minute, my buddy James, who's now my business partner, runs our entire commercial division. He was the director of training at North Star. And he was the one that was kind of like trying to get us over there. He's like, well, if you're not going to go to North Star for sure, then at least hear me out. He's like, I got a couple buddies in Boise, Idaho. They have a small little startup called Smart Home Security. They're a dealer for safe security. But we want to do some big things. We think we can have a big impact. Like they can't give you a sign-on bonus. They can give you gas money and pay for a motel for a few nights. And that's it. And I don't know what we saw. It was just like the massive potential upside. And it was like they're not an
Yeah.
established company. It's a couple guys in a garage in Boise, Idaho. But sure, like let's do it. Let's potentially do something big. So I was going to get like 650 an account up front. There was no sign-on bonus. They gave me like a few $100 or whatever for gas, a few $100 for like a motel, Sandman Inn and Suites. This was back in 2015. And then I just paid the 5K back to Protection One and said, I'm not going to work with you guys. So we just paid that back and went out to Boise. So that was our first summer, me and a couple buddies. And I did probably like 72 accounts or something like that. My first summer out there, it was actually kind of nuts. Towards the end of that summer, we were in hotels because we had went up to Oregon and we were going to like, that was going to be the holy land supposedly of like the better area. And so when they got licensed and we went up there to install, we were in hotels and we just got tired of being in hotels. And so we're like, well, let's go camp. Let's get some fresh air. You know, let's go camping for a few days and we'll come back. A few days turned into, this is real. We turned into 2 months of living in the woods in tents and selling during the day. So for 2 months, our routine was wake up. We would cook up pancakes on the griddle in the middle of the forest. We would slam like our green powder. We'd go to the gym. We'd work out. We'd shower at the gym, put on our knocking uniform, go knock doors all day, go to the gas station or like the local grocery store in this small, tiny town by the campground, buy a bunch of beer, a bunch of food, a bunch of s'mores, and we would just drink and smoke and party. And we did that every day for 2 months. We actually had ADT signs like out in front of our tents, staked into the ground. And there's a sign in my office at our HQ that says Camp Savage. It's a giant wooden plank and it says Camp Savage on it in like spray paint. That's from that summer.
I've seen pictures of that.
Yeah, the infamous Camp Savage. That's what we called it, man. Crazy, crazy times.
I didn't know that was. I've seen pictures of it and I've heard stories. I didn't know that was actually like legit. That's hilarious. How much money did you end up making that first summer?
Probably a little over 50 grand. I'd say like 40, 50 grand. It was the first time I looked through bank statements at the end of the year and I realized I'd spent like 22 or 23 grand of that directly on either alcohol or partying. And it was a big, like, you would think that would have been the big aha to change things, but it was really just an aha and I didn't change. So this is like The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham talks a lot about dumb tax.
Yeah.
And if people want to talk about dumb tax, like come and talk to me. I'm a professional at paying dumb tax. So come and learn from all the dumb tax that I paid for like almost a decade before I finally wised up and stopped paying dumb tax or as much dumb tax because I continued to party and was reckless and a dummy for probably 2 or 3 years. I took a year off, started up a supplement company. That supplement company failed. Then I got the next year after my gap year, if you want to call it that, got to Vivint, did a summer in Denver, Colorado. That summer, I was about to have a lawsuit from the supplement company because the manufacturer went under new management. They had comped me a couple hundred extra bottles because they messed up on the dosage of the formula. And so the guy who was currently operating was like, we're just going to give you like 250 extra bottles instead of redoing the whole thing. I said, okay, there's no paper trail. So when new management came in and was going through the books, they thought, oh, there's 250 free bottles that we gave to this kid. We got to invoice this person. So they billed me. I tried making payments with them. The payments were too big. I had a horrible summer with Vivint. I only sold like 30 alarms that whole summer. I was dating my now wife, Kelsey, at the time. We had only been dating for like 6 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. It was probably actually like almost a year at that point. And so I have all this financial pressure. I'm in credit card debt. These guys are coming after me for like, it was like 10 grand or something, which seems like not a big deal. But back then I was
Sure.
weak. I was weak. I was
Yeah.
stressed. And I was like really, really in a bad spot mentally. And I was like, my whole world is crashing down. Then I was also still partying like an idiot. You know, when I wasn't knocking doors, I'd still party or drink or hang out with people and just like not do productive things. And then my wife or my girlfriend at the time and I, Kelsey, had gotten in a fight. She went back home. She was going to finish the last month of the summer back home while I stayed out there. A week after she's home, she calls me and says she's pregnant. She found out that she had been pregnant just before that. So I'm like, I was out in the field with my buddy Alex actually when she called me. And I remember just like hanging up the phone, had a blank look on my face. My buddy's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, I found out that Kelsey's pregnant. And we didn't really talk much. I went to a go back that I had that day right after. I sold the guy on his porch the alarm because I had to go back. And then we went straight to the bar and we just had a pint of beer and we just kind of sat quiet and I drank my beer and tried to process like how my whole life is falling apart. Then you fast forward to the next summer. Next summer comes along, Vantage Pest Control, right? Because it's not my fault, it's the industry's fault, was my perspective. So we're going to change industries. And so we recruit like 15, 20 people. We go to Portland, Oregon. And this is when I can't afford the monthly payments anymore for that supplement company because the interest was nuts. So here's the thing. I was making minimum payments, but they had a stupid high interest rate for the time that I wasn't paying. So every month it was basically like it was increasing. Like there was just there's no way to get out of it. It was actually getting more and more. So now it was like 13 grand that I owed instead of 10 grand. And I'm like, how is this even happening? Like, I can't do this. And so I missed a few payments. They said like, hey, we're going to like, I think they're going to put a judgment. Like they're going to take it to small claims and put a judgment on me. And then like, what is it? Levy, where like they withdraw, they basically pay them before they pay me. Yeah. So like on my checks. And so it was kind of crazy that year. They didn't end up doing anything. So it went quiet for a few months. So I thought, hey, maybe my problem magically disappeared. That summer was okay. Didn't go great. I got like 5 grand on the back end. I actually didn't deserve a back end check. I think we went negative like a few grand. And shout out to Tom Karen. He's just a good dude. He knew Christmas was coming up. He had a good relationship with me. He believed in me and my partner Alex. And he wired me 5 grand for my back end. I think this was early December. I didn't deserve it at all. And he gave me 5 grand just to help me pay my bills because he knew I was in a bad spot. So to this day, so much respect for Tom Karen. He's one of the real ones in the industry. Great dude. And next year, even amongst that, I decide to go to BioShield because obviously the reason I failed wasn't the industry, it was the company. Like I'm telling you guys, lots of dumb tax, lots and lots of dumb tax. I learned the lesson and then I had to learn it again and again and again. And so we decided to open up with BioShield, which is a pest control division of Caliber. And it's this new exciting thing. They want to open up Washington, D.C. They have, this big override they're going to pay us. And so we decided to do that. So we go out to DC, Woodbridge, Virginia. We've got our apartments. We recruit some more people, and things are actually going pretty good. Like we're actually selling deals.
You're
like,
what?
We're doing pretty well.
You're 22. You're 22 at the time. About 22, 23 maybe at this point, right?
This summer would have been because first summer ever, 2015. Then I took a gap year. Then 2017 was
Yep.
Vivint. 2018 was
Okay.
Vantage, and then 2019 was BioShield. So this 2019, what is that like for? I would have been
22, 23.
24. I think I was
Okay.
24 at the time, actually. Yeah.
So
So I
you're
think I was
still
24.
and I've gone through the same conundrum that you did, being young, being dumb, being immature, not like thinking that I'm going to be worth X amount of money without really having proven myself or like being worth anything at that point, right? Of any
Right.
value. So you're still young with kind of that ambition, right?
Yeah.
I
All the
just wanted to
ambition in the
make sure that we
world.
highlight that. Yeah,
Yeah. All the ambition in the world. And was I a good person? Yes. Did I care for other people? Yes. Was I always spending money that I did have on other people and taking care of other people? Yes. I always had those traits. But like you said, I didn't understand how to actually add value and be a producer. Like, what's a real
sure.
producer? A real producer is somebody that can go out and put up numbers and get the job done and deliver, without needing a sign-on bonus and it's like I was that guy. Like you like if people need a sign-on bonus, that's a red flag. Like why do you need money up front? If you're confident in your sales abilities, you shouldn't need money up front because you can go
Yeah,
produce cash because you're a producer. And so this is the year that I finally started to get towards wising up. I was doing things right. I was working hard. We planned effectively. And it was tough because now the supplement company legal team is back, and I did like a free call with Legal Shield. I think there's like a free trial. So I talked to an attorney, and the attorney was like, "Well, if they put a judgment on you, that's worse on your record than bankruptcy." So this is 2019, and he's basically saying like, "Hey, you should file bankruptcy. That's going to be a better option than oh wait, 2015, 16, 17. Yeah, that's right." And he's telling me that I should do bankruptcy instead of letting the judgment hit me because it's better on my record. It'll go off after 7 years, blah, blah, blah. So take his advice. My grandma at the time was a bankruptcy attorney, not like a high quality one, just like, she knows how to file a bankruptcy. And so it was like the cheapest to do it through her. So I call my grandma, tell her I'm a failure, help me file bankruptcy. I've got a 1-year-old son at this time, almost 1-year-old actually, not even one. And me and Kelsey are out there and we're shoestring budget, just trying to figure it out. And here's like my soon to be wife. I think
sure.
she was my fiance at that time. And I'm like, hey, like, thanks for moving across the country and sacrificing everything and having a child with me and believing in me, even though I'm filing bankruptcy and I'm an idiot and blah, blah, blah. So we worked hard that summer, and I made the mistake of recruiting a lot of family members. And so even though they were getting deals, it was mentally hard for them. And when one dropped, the rest dropped. It was only a matter of time. So one
Sure.
dropped, then the husband of that person dropped, and then the other cousin dropped. And then a month later, the other cousin dropped. By the end of the summer, we had about 15 people to start. By the end of the summer, we had three of us, me, my co-manager, and then one chick, Catherine Knapp, who is this Kentucky girl that had never knocked doors that hustled, man. She was a hustler. And her husband, Hunter, was actually the only technician that didn't quit on us too. And he was doing like 10 services plus a day. This was pest control. And so he was just
Wow.
cranking, man, like crawl space. And this is DC, dude. It's humid, it's miserable, it's
Yeah.
saturated. It was not fun. And so, anyways, we're like, all right, well, we finished up well, like even with the housing expenses, we had a spreadsheet that broke down because we had a marketing deal. And so I was to make about 30 grand. And then my co-manager TJ was supposed to make like, I think like 10 or 15 grand after all the expenses had been deducted for like incentives and housing and everything. So we're like, well, this sucked. It could have gotten a lot better. But at least we're making money this year. At least we'll have a back end check. Flat out, we got screwed. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes companies actually screw you in a back end. I think a lot of times people say that they got screwed. They didn't. This one was just flat out. Unfortunately, we got screwed. They were trying to like buy time. I'm not going to name the guy who led that company just because I don't like slandering, even if it's real. It's not even slander. It's just the true story. But he has a family, and I think he's probably a good guy, generally speaking. I don't know why he did this or what was going on in his life
Sure.
at the time to justify this. But basically, they came back and said there were additional expenses we didn't calculate. It turns out that we were actually a little negative, but obviously, we're not going to come after you guys for that. If you go ahead and sign for next year, we can get working on recruiting and everything. We'll wire both of you guys 5 grand. So they're basically like, hey, we're going to like hold you hostage. We're not going to pay you what we owed you. Instead, we're going to blackmail you and offer you 5 grand to like do the golden handcuffs to get us for another year.
Yeah.
So that hurt. That really hurt. I thought I'd finally made a little bit of money. You know, my fiance was like, "Oh, thank goodness we have a little bit of cash. We'll at least be able to pay bills and have a Christmas." And keep in mind, I had the messiest bankruptcy you'd ever seen in your life too. It was about a 6 month process. I got this attorney in Utah that apparently has a reputation for being just a bad dude because it's like a system where it's just random on who you get based off of when you file in the year. And my grandma didn't know, but when we filed, we got this guy named Stephen Rupp. We had to contact attorneys to try and help us with the bankruptcy because he was trying to flip our lives upside down. He has a reputation of like making your life miserable, making unrealistic demands, and trying to like get money out of you throughout the process. It was bad.
Have you, up to this point, when you're getting ready to file bankruptcy, or maybe bankruptcy was that, you talked about like the aha moment when Kelsey called and told you she was pregnant, or the aha moment when you didn't have any money. Have you had, up to this point, again, you're 24, 25, have you had your aha moment yet up to this point?
No. I had moments that should have been that. And I think for any sane, logical person, those would have been aha moments. Honestly, like I made minor changes and you know, I was incrementally improving year over year for sure. I was getting slightly better, but I was still paying a lot of dumb tax. I
Sure.
was still very ignorant. And I don't think that I really truly actually um, got a lot of the principles that I have today until middle of last year. Seriously. Like mid 2022, I think is when I
Interesting.
really had sort of like a bigger life and business aha. And like the last couple years were big growth curves for me and like a lot of good things were happening for
Sure.
sure. But like I think the big aha really did not happen until last year, you know, when I was 28 at the time. I'm still 28. So it's pretty interesting. You know,
What
I
was
wish
that
I
aha moment?
I so some of you guys listening know Taylor Welch. I know you know Taylor. He
Yeah.
has a lot of really, really good content. And I remember watching because this was right before we had brought him on our board of directors. We had just all followed his content, listened to his podcast, and thought he was a really smart guy. And I remember watching the video that he made when he talked about walking away from his his $100 million. No. Frick, dude. What was it? Was it like 100 million in revenue that they did?
It was close. It was close to. I don't know exact numbers, but I think
I
it
think
was
it
close
was,
to.
yeah, I think it was like 90 million. It was like 97, 98 million that they did. Really, really big, successful company. And had he would have, or would he had sold his equity in that, he could have probably walked away with like 30 million cash. And
Yeah,
for whatever
I
reason, he
think those
made the
numbers are fairly
decision.
close.
Yeah, and he's got podcasts, so people can look him up and you know, you'll see it on YouTube or his podcast. But he talked about how he walked away from everything. He's like, I made 100 million and it wasn't worth it. It was kind of like the big video that he made. And in the video and in the podcast, he talks about how he had built this beast up. And this is about 4 or 5 months in now at this point to Grateful Company being started, which was like in-house solar, panel procurement, roofing, and commercial, kind of all getting off the ground. Like the foundation had been laid, but really like at that time it was mostly Resi Solar was the only one that was producing a big chunk. And then I think procurement, we
Yeah.
landed one big deal at this time. And I remember my wife, after I'd watched this video and gotten perspective, because he was like, I looked at my daughter and she wasn't talking to me. She wasn't looking at me. And he's like, he talked to his wife. He's like, hey, why isn't she looking at me? And she's like, you're never around. Why should she look at you? And it hit him. He's like, oh shit, like I'm actually like a bad dad. Like I'm not around, and my own daughter
Yeah.
isn't looking at me and has attitude because she's mad at me because I haven't been present as a father. And he's like, I have all the money. I did the successful thing. I've built the fastest growing companies. You know, he's the best in his space at what he does, and it's not worth it. And so he literally walked away, didn't sell his equity, didn't go through that process, just gave the keys, said, I'm out, left the business. And, you know, he obviously had some money and things, but he left like a lot on the table to go and build like a better, more sustainable life for himself. And I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, this time was kind of the aha because my wife was kind of depressed and just, you know, not really super happy. Like she was still rallying because for the freaking
Yeah.
bajillionth time, we picked up our lives from Utah at the
Moved
beginning
it.
of 2022. And we're like, let's go out to Houston, Texas. Even though I told you that we were never going to do this again, we're going to do it again because we're going to start this big company. And like, I've got to be there knocking doors on the ground, building this out. Like, you got to trust me. And she did. You know, she said, I'm all in for 1 year. And it's like 5 months into it, 6 months maybe. And she goes home because I'm like, go home, like visit family, like see if you can feel better in Utah. And I remember FaceTiming her. This was the real off, but it was probably like a week after I saw Taylor's video. I FaceTimed my wife and she was so happy. She was just lit up on FaceTime, just so happy. And she's talking about how she went to lunch with her friend and how her and her mom were going to do this and how she went and did this. And then tomorrow she's got this plan. And it was the first time I'd seen my wife with like a sparkle and true, like actual enjoyment and happiness and like engaging with other people and just so happy. And I just sat there and my son was playing with friends and he was happy. And I just like, it finally hit me. I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're, you're, you say, it was like this weird, like moment of, oh my God, I've been lying to myself and to other people unintentionally for years and years and years. I told myself, like, I'm going to build this company for my son, but it's like, my son doesn't want that. My son wants to be able to play and have time with dad and build
Yeah.
memories. My son doesn't care about the new Nikes that we got him because we're making money at Christmas and he got 10 pairs of Nike. He doesn't care about that, dude. He just wants to go to the
Yeah.
park and he wants to wrestle at home with dad and he wants to go and play with friends. My wife doesn't care about, like, I'm not building this for my wife. Like she just wants to be able to have a good life and hang out with friends and pursue passions that she wants and like go on some vacations with me and you know, have time at night to watch Netflix and to cuddle and to just hang out on the couch and eat good food and get some takeout. Like I'd been structuring my life around this excuse or this fugazi of a vision that I'd created that I got to do this for my family. I got to do this for my wife. I got to do this for my son. I got to, this weird chip on my shoulder of success that because I grew up broke and my parents didn't have that. Like for whatever reason, I thought I had to be the one. And here's the thing, I'm still going to do all those things, be it, but like I'm not going to do it at the expense of what matters the most. And that was the first time that I actually
Yeah.
didn't consciously like know that because I heard it, you know, some guy say it and it sounded good, but I actually changed. And we immediately, on FaceTime, I interrupted my wife and I'm like, you're not coming back to Texas. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're not coming back to Texas. I'm coming to Utah. Like we're coming back. I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll go back and forth. I'll travel. But like no, we're done. We're done. We're building a family. We're building a future. We're building a life. You're in this. I'm not gonna compromise your fulfillment for my financial success and to feed my ego. And we're
Yeah.
still building like crazy. You know, I'm about to travel tomorrow for almost 2 weeks. It's not fun. Like there's still some sacrifices that have to be made, but it's so much better now. And it's done in like a healthy way where she is equal in this. It's not the Kota show, right?
So that aha moment, you and I have had conversations about that transaction, about the conversation you had with your wife, like offline, obviously. And I did not realize that would have been as big of an I didn't realize that was as big of an aha moment for you as it appears to be. But what would you say to someone else? Because I think this happens a lot. Like you and I are very alike, and a lot of people that I have on this show are very alike, where we are highly motivated individuals who love to experience the thrill of not just success, but building and growing and implementing, right? But how has that situation that you're now in, where you've put others ahead of your own desires, right? Your wife and your son, how has that impacted the success of what you're building?
So, as you can probably imagine, even though it doesn't make sense, the business has been going faster, better, stronger since doing this. And the reason I say as you can imagine is because like when you're in the moment, first consciously you're like, oh, the business will suffer if I don't do this. The way I look at it is this: when you are inside of something, like inside of the business, or when you are stuck just like in the motions of something, it seems like the only option is to do more or to keep doing this. Like
Mm-hmm.
the second you take a step back, everything's going to fall apart. And that's what I believe. And it's the same thing with like investing or saving. You're like, I need to make more money before I can save. And it's like, actually, or before I can invest. I'd say investing because like saving is trash. But it's like, actually, you just need to invest because it's a habit that you need to build. You're not going to make more money until you learn the habit of managing money. And so you set aside, even if it's 10% or 5% even, you get in the habit and you train yourself to no matter what, 5% aside, you don't touch it and it goes away. It's gone forever and you invest it. And then you can start making more money. You can start doing those things. It's like we want to wait until we have time. You'll never have more time. Like I told myself for years, one more year, one more year, one more year, one more summer, just this one season. And then after this, and I realized I can do all of it. I can do all of it. It's okay. Like I can find a
Yeah.
way. And here's the thing with your brain too, is like if you limit yourself and you give yourself intentional constraints in your life and your schedule and your business, you're going to find a way to still get the same results. It's not like your goals and your dreams and your vision are going to shrink. I still have the same big goals and vision and dreams. Now I just have to get creative and say, what is actually worth my time? And so it's given me at least the first level up of many more to come for sure as we reach new levels. But it's like playing with my son at night when I'm in town, non-negotiable. Like if I'm doing my morning routine and my son wakes up while I'm doing it, I'll be late to the gym. I'll be a little late to my first call if I have to spend 5 minutes, ask him how he slept,
Yeah.
give him some love, hugging him, holding him, just like enjoying that time. If my wife wants to stay up just a little later talking or doing something, like there's just certain things that I don't negotiate on anymore that I used to. Because it used to be when there's gaps in my schedule, then I'm going to give time to my son. Then I'm going to, and dude, there's never going to be gaps in your schedule. So inserting these things that are
No.
non-negotiables, and then like I will build the business around that. And then it's like, cool, I'm just eliminating waste in the business. I used to waste time doing things that I thought were important that really weren't.
So that I think I already know the answer to this because I've hyper focused on this the last 2 or 3 months because of similar experiences. But how has that time blocking and your non-negotiables, how has that affected the rest of your well-being? Like obviously a lot of the times we talk about financial well-being, but what about like your emotional well-being or your health? Like how has doing those things affected the other aspects of your life?
Dude, it's been a game changer. I'm the type of person that I told myself like I can work 15 hours a day for forever. I'm a workhorse. And sometimes I do. Like there are certain seasons for sure where I'll work like 15 hours a day for 2 weeks. But I used to tell myself like with emotions, like let's talk about anxiety. Because I think at least in the entrepreneur, sales, whatever business, like high performer world, anxiety is probably the most prevalent emotion that's like negative that people would say. At least for me, that's like the number one that would cause me the most suffering or agony was these bouts of anxiety and anxiousness or like just always there underlying. And when I did this, at first I had a little bit of anxiety. It was actually kind of hard for the first like 1 to 2 weeks because naturally like you are not working and so you're constantly thinking about working. You're like, what about this? What about this? You're
Is
stressed.
this
And I'm
going to
like,
get done? Are we still going to make
yeah,
money? Like, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
like, I wasn't perfect. I was still on my phone and I wasn't as present and I was stressed and I was like not feeling good. It was actually really hard for a couple of weeks. So I'm not going to lie to you and say it's the best thing ever. It was an adjustment. It was a learning curve. But after that, I have far less anxiety. I have far less stress. I have far more peace. I sleep better. I'm not like at night, that hour of tossing and turning and thoughts racing through my head and worrying about this and this and this. I can actually shut my brain off and go to sleep now. Um, and it's not like I don't have a racing mind still, and it's not like I don't have anxiety here and there still, but it's substantially lower than it used to be. And my peace and happiness and just like self-fulfillment is a lot better. And I'm realizing that when I'm in this state, like it really, business and life and success, anything that you do really does like truly, I believe at least, come down to the emotional and like spiritual whatever like mindset state that you're in when you're doing that activity. I used to think it was just the activities that mattered. Like put more into your calendar, do more things, and you're going to get better results. Now I'm realizing like the state that you're in actually has the biggest impact. And so when I'm in a really positive state and I jump on a call, I'm not showing up stressed and anxious and getting through the call and like get this done, get this done. I can be calm and collected and just objectively break it down and say like, what's the best possible solution? The rushed state that I was in more so before this year caused a lot of problems in the business, and I didn't realize it in that moment. It took me slowing down to understand how to actually speed up and how to do it without me physically or mentally speeding up and having that rushed state of mind. Like I've cut my caffeine intake down. Like I'm not quite as stimulated as I used to be. Like I still like an energy drink a day. I still, you know, like don't get me wrong, I'm still like a normal ADHD salesperson that like enjoys stuff like that as much as the next guy. But I've noticed that by limiting it and by slowing down a little bit and just thinking a little bit more and not just like booking calls from like most days I still do sometimes, but most days not booking calls from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. that not only am I getting more done, but I'm making wiser decisions that I used to think just like moving fast was the secret. And now I'm like, oh, I'm making a decision that 90 days from now is the best decision for the company. Even if it's a little slower for the next 90 days, after 90 days, it's way better and we're way further along versus before. It was like, what's the best, fastest solution right now? And we might have been a little bit faster, a little bit better for that first 1 to 3 months. But then after 90 days, we had to like build a new system because we didn't build it right the first time. And so it's given me a lot more focus, clarity, confidence, like the business is going better. And it's also just like, it's getting me excited because I'm like, okay, cool. I already feel better and the business is moving faster. Just imagine when I have another breakthrough or we hit another level of capacity where we have to increase and learn these lessons
Yeah.
and work more efficiently, like what that's going to look like. So,
And some of it has to happen organically. I like previously we were talking a little bit about like that you could call it like imposter syndrome or the desire to be, extremely wealthy when you're young. It's funny. I've got two employees that every once in a while they'll come into my office and say, "Hey, we've got this idea. Tell me what your thoughts are." And I'm like, yeah, it's been done, or yeah, I can tell you who's doing that right now. And so, and even myself, like sometimes I have to, I'm young, I'm 27, similar to you. And sometimes I have to catch myself thinking, okay, I'm only 27, right? If I just let the natural process of this happen, odds are is it'll work out. But that being said, you are building an organization that has tons of upside. I mean, and I'll let you talk a little bit about this, kind of highlight it, but you've got a board of directors in your organization that is lights out. I mean, 4 or 5 of the people have ran organizations that are doing or have done hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. You've got an individual who has built quite arguably one of the most successful venture capital or private equity groups in the country, in Axia Partners.
yep.
How has their perspectives changed your perspectives? I don't even really want to talk about like success, but just like how have again, kind of there ends up being a theme in every conversation. And even though we're not talking about a financial tax, we're talking about kind of like a dummy tax, if you will. That's kind of been a theme. So how have their perspectives and their successes changed your outlook on what you think you're able to accomplish?
It's been really cool because I'm realizing that the only limitation our business and our business growth have is the ability for us to ask them the right questions. They really have done a phenomenal job when we've leaned on them in helping us with solutions. So like a big perspective shift is like we have this big board of directors and it's awesome, but us we're only limited by like not knowing what to ask them. Seriously, it sounds weird to say because you're like, oh, if I had a board of directors, I know what to ask them, but it's like you really like you're not going to waste their time, and so it forces you to think about like when I go to this person, and here's the thing too is if it's a dumb question or like if we're like, oh, we need to know how to do this, we're like, okay, this is a really high level individual that's got a really busy schedule. It's managing hundreds of millions of dollars, like you said, with their businesses or their private equity funds or whatever they're involved in. Let's make sure that we have this articulated well enough so that we can conserve time, not hop on 3 5 hour freaking meetings, just like get a quick answer, hop on the phone and get a solution to it. So we've actually leveraged them far less than we have. What it's done is it's forced us to go, okay, here's the question. And then when we figure out what that well articulated question is, a lot of times we're like, oh, well, we could find that here and here and here. We actually realize like, oh, we know what we're doing. So it's more than anything, I feel like, given us a lot more confidence in ourselves and in the organization because of what I just said. And then also sometimes we've asked them and they're like, I think you should do this. And it's like, oh, that's what we thought too. We just wanted to ask you because you're bigger, smarter, whatever. So it's like, oh, trust yourself more. Like
Yeah.
it's cool that somebody with that level of experience is validating what we are already doing or what we're already. And I think the biggest thing, man, on the confidence side is that like I was on a call this morning with Cody Jefferson, who's on our board, and also like a personal coach, life fitness,
Yeah.
spiritual, like every business, all of it for myself and the other owners. And we talked for like 30 minutes this morning after I worked out. And I was just kind of updating him on the master plan for the next 2 years and like kind of the sequences of what we're trying to do on the chessboard. And seeing him get excited and hearing him say like, I'm so amped and wired with what you guys are doing, and I have such a big belief. Like, let me know if I can be involved more. Let me know how I can help. Hearing him say that is just like the ultimate confidence booster because it's like these are people that are not getting paid profit share, dividends, things like this. Like they only get to win if we have this big audacious exit that all of us believe that we can have. And so having them believe in us and our vision and our company gives us a lot of confidence to show up as the best versions of ourselves and move forward. So it's been cool, man. It's kind of like Chat GPT. Like it's a really badass
Yeah.
platform. But I remember the first time I got on there, I'm just like staring at my phone for a few minutes. I'm like, what do I ask this
What?
thing? Because like I
Yeah.
don't even know what I want to know. And so it's cool because it teaches you like, oh, you're only limited by the questions that you ask. Like you have to learn how to ask higher level questions because you'll naturally find the solutions or find the people that have the solutions if you at least know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I read well, that's funny you mentioned that. I read something on like Instagram or TikTok the other day, and the quote, I'm going to butcher it, but the quote is something along the lines of, what is the best way to, what is the best way to get a positive outcome? And it is have a positive, have a, or gain experience, well, what's the best way to gain experience? And it's like making dumb decisions, and then you realize like, in the event of making more and more decisions, whether they're dumb or not, you gain more and more experience for a potentially better outcome. And I think the hard part that a lot of people have is we live in a society where everyone can receive an answer instantaneously, whether that's through Google or ChatGPT or, social media. And I think what I've had to find and what I've learned is, like you mentioned at the very beginning, like those things are going to paint a perfect picture, but if I'm able to come out with a better outcome and I'm able to accomplish that through my own learning, I'm going to have a better insight into that outcome. And so I think if you're at a position in a company where you can bring on a board of advisors, I think it would be very wise to do that. I've got an organization right now that we're potentially looking at bringing on an investor and an advisor just because they would understand the industry a lot better than us. But one, I've learned, just like you over the course of the past 2 months, that if you force yourself to learn it, you're going to be able to learn it, right? And having that
Yep.
ability to learn things is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Bilyeu said, failure is the most information-rich data stream. And hearing him say that was really cool because it's like, oh, yeah, like It's true. And, the cool thing is like we get access to so many great minds that if we're willing to implement what smarter people are saying instead of thinking that we're smarter than them and have to do it our own way, you can save yourself a lot of the pain. You can't save yourself from all the pain. You can save yourself from a lot of it. I was
Yeah,
too egotistical and thought I was smarter than these people. I didn't think at the time I thought I was smarter than these people, but like apparently I did because I would go to masterminds or I would listen to my mentor or I would listen to a podcast and I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it for like 8 years. I was broke. I was struggling. I was in pain. I was just working so hard for 8 years, but doing things the wrong way, all because I wouldn't just listen to other people and I had to learn myself. But here's the thing: because I didn't quit, had I quit, literally, so many failures. It's not even funny. But had I quit even just a year ago, right before we started the in-house installer, which was another turning point where I should have quit, quote unquote, because of more bad things happening, none of this would have
sure.
happened. It would have all been for nothing. And it's like if you're going to go through this pain, you're going to fail, and you're going to fall on your face again and again. At least don't stop so that it becomes worth it. Because if you do stop, you just suffered and got nothing for it. And so it's like, even if you have to suffer 2 more years to get a lot of success after that, it's worth it. 3 more years, 5, 10 years of suffering would be worth it to have all of the positive upside after you figure this thing out and it starts to pop off. The problem is most people just eventually get beat down enough to where they think the pain is too great and they stop and they settle, and it sucks because then it's like however whatever part you quit on, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, 9 year, right before the success, you just suffered and you got nothing for it. So
You would never know. So
yeah.
obviously we've talked a lot about kind of like the dummy tax, right? But it sounds like well, it doesn't sound like, from experience, I can say that there's a tax when it comes to being successful, and that tax I think looks different for everyone based on their circumstances, right? Because even though
Yep.
I haven't gone through your experiences, I've felt the tax of being an entrepreneur, and I've learned my lessons in different ways. For me, one of those lessons is partners, bad partners, good partners, and that seems to kind of be a reoccurring theme that maybe I just haven't learned my lesson on, right? I continue to pay that dummy tax, but I think that dummy tax is important, and sometimes it's not necessarily a dummy tax. You'll find out really quick that insight is going to be a breakthrough for you, and you'll be able to
Mm.
accomplish something great at the end of that. So
Yeah, agreed.
that's good. Well, good. To be honest with you, Kota, I think that was, like I said, for me, the overarching segment and inspiration from this little podcast that we've been able to have a conversation about is that little dummy tax. I think for those who are listening, who are in a position where maybe you're trying to start something, or you're trying to grow, or maybe haven't had your aha moment, if you will. I think if you continue to move on for another season, you'll understand that there's an outcome that's supposed to happen for you. I think time has an incredible way of making things work out for the best, even if they don't seem like it's the best situation. And if you're in a position where you are growing a company, you are already successful, I think it goes to say that there's not an opportunity to continue to grow. I think what I've seen is people who are successful limit themselves because they think they've got it all. They don't continue to, engage in masterminds or have coaches, or, like you talk about some of the people that I know we're part of some of the same organizations, and some of the things that we're learning, even if we're already implementing that or we're already there, are so important. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Couldn't have said it better.
well, good. No, well, if nothing else, Coda, I appreciate you, your time, and your insights. Like I said, I think I've learned a couple different things. I definitely can highlight a couple of my dummy taxes, if you will. But how can people get a hold of you? Where can they look to find you? I know you're very active on social media, and tell us a little bit about what future projects people might be able to look out for that you're growing.
Yeah, Instagram's probably going to be the number one place to find me. So if you type in Kota Ivers, I'm the only one there. If you see Kota Ivers, 69 or Kota Ivers 3 underscores, it's not me. If I ask you for crypto money, it's not me. So on social media, you can find me. And then in terms of things coming up, man, probably over the next year, I don't have dates yet at all, but we will be doing a massive event over the next year or so. And it's going to be a really cool way to unite a lot of people from roofing, solar, sales, door to door, online, all these different kind of things in the home services space. And we're going to donate all of the money. Admission tickets will be cheap, probably like $50. All of it will go to charity. And we have really, really cool speakers that we're going to be working on. So like that's a long ways out. But if you're a patient person, just follow me long enough that you see that and you come to that event down the road. That's the biggest thing that we have coming down the pipe.
Well, keep me posted. I'd love to participate in any way we can. That sounds like it'd be a great event. So that's awesome.
Sure.
Good for you guys. Well,
yeah,
awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Kota, thanks for coming on again. I appreciate it. For those of you guys listening, thanks so much. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, as you can tell, Kota's got some big things going on. So you're quickly going to learn as you continue to listen that here on Slackin' Off, we do everything but that. So thanks, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.